So we'll start our meeting now. Those interested are invited to address the Hope Suicide Prevention Task Force on any subject not on today's agenda, orally via Zoom webinar. Speakers may provide their name and city of residence for the record, and comments may be limited to 3 minutes or less at the discretion of the meeting coordinator. As an item not listed on the agenda, no response is required from city staff or the Hope Suicide Task Force, and no action can be taken. Our first item, as usual, is Jay from the county, and I don't know if he is here.
I don't see Jay yet.
Okay, so we'll skip him, and I'll just do a quick update from my side. We had an LGBTQ town hall on November 17th. We don't have much attendance for those town halls, which are LGBTQ. We do have for other town halls. So our next step is to invite Bill Wilson Center. I have them for a presentation for our teen LGBTQ youth in February. So we'll see how that goes. I see Jay. Welcome, Jay.
Hi, Charlie. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
We'll go back to your item. Any updates for us?
Yeah, so Charlie, I don't want to like spoil the surprise, but I know you're talking about trying to do a movie screening.
Yeah.
And so we chatted about that today as a team, and we think we'll be able to sort of make that happen. I hope I'm not spoiling anything.
No, that's okay. Thank you. Thank you.
But yeah, I'll let you like kind of, you can discuss that. But so yes, that's likely something that will be on the horizon. And then also the big thing from us is just that we have our campaign, our gun safety, safe storage, suicide prevention campaign is up and active right now. So it's going to be on radio. It's on like YouTube and programmatic ads, so they can kind of pop up on folks' phones. And we also have the flyer out, and I'm working on getting the flyer translated into Spanish and Vietnamese. So that should be moving really quickly. Got the copy translated back just a few moments ago. And so it's just going to be a matter of getting it into the flyer accordingly. So I'll have those around to the group as well. But that's really the biggest things we're working on. And then also I've given a few safe messaging trainings to area high schools and, like their newspaper staffs, and they seem to be popular with that group, especially. It's really good to see following obvious, like, the recent events in the area, to see kind of the engagement with the younger folks and focusing on mental health and suicide prevention. So it's really exciting. And if you ever think of it, or you talk to anyone and they're, you can throw my name out there and say, oh, I think the county gives this safe messaging training. I'm always happy to give it. It's a really, really valuable thing, and I really enjoy it. So those are our big updates.
Jay, can I ask, were you guys doing a gun buyback or participating with a gun buyback? I thought I had remembered that was going to happen in December and then got perhaps postponed.
Yep, you got it. So it was postponed for basically there was a lot of security kind of details that they would have to, not details, but security, I guess it would be logistics. Mm-hmm. It was just too short a notice to be able to work out. So they did say that they're still planning on having it in the spring. That's what the DA's office told us, but they do not have a date for it yet. And hopefully, I guess maybe they'll figure that out in time. But as soon as I hear anything, Tegan, I'll be sure to let you all know. That way we can coordinate and get materials and stuff, and be there if we need a volunteer as well. So.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Did you want to let people know about maybe the assist training will happen on 24th, 25th Feb?
So is that the date? I guess
Yes.
That was one of the things that, because I don't handle specifically our trainings, but that's the date you and Jasmine settled on?
24th and 25th of February.
Yeah, so it looks like, it sounds like, Charlie, you might know a little more about it than I do.
Okay, so
Maybe you can update, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just have everyone pencil in. So 24th and 5th of February, which is Thursday and Friday, we will be hosting assist training. Jasmine from the county is setting things up. We are not 100% sure yet because the trainers have to confirm. But I just wanted to let everyone know if they're interested in attending, it will be at Barbara Lee Senior Center.
And I will say, Charu, just to kind of shamelessly plug it, I don't know if anyone else has taken it, but I've taken the assist training and it's awesome. It's a really, really, really impactful training. Probably my favorite one that I've taken. So if you get a chance, I would really strongly encourage it.
Yeah, this will be my first one, so I'm looking forward. Okay, thank you, Jay. Moving on to Tegan. Tegan has updates about postvention protocol that we discussed last time.
So I want to continue the discussion that we had in November. And we talked after the teenage suicide in Milpitas about the media coverage and the press release that we issued. And this group had expressed interest in us making a recommendation to amend the protocol, our standard operating procedure. So I have drafted what I understood the discussion to be leaning toward last time and wanted to share that with you guys today, get some feedback. We have members of the Milpitas Police Department here. So Captain Torres is here. And of course, Lieutenant Jameson. So get some feedback from them. Charu, can you scroll down a little bit on there? The portions that I changed or added, I fixed a typo, and then I added this section E, which is shown in blue here. If a local suicide occurs in public or impacts the public, such as resulting in a road or building closure, the Milpitas Police Department may deem it necessary to issue a press release. If this is necessary, the press release will be drafted to include only basic and necessary facts. Out of respect for survivors, a city-issued press release will not confirm a death as suicide, nor include identifying details of the deceased or survivors, nor details that could be construed as sensational or cause undue stress to survivors. No press release would be issued for suicide deaths that occur in private and do not impact the public. So that is what I understood this group to be requesting last time. And I would love to open it up for discussion now to see if that did in fact capture what you were hoping to propose. Any comments?
Hi, everyone. This is Mego. I think that all looks fantastic and captures what we talked about. I don't know if there's anything about coordination with other community organizations in this protocol, or if that could be added as well.
There is not, and I forgot that part. So
okay.
Yes. Yeah,
I don't know if it's tapping the HOPE task force to be the coordinating body, or just saying that PD will coordinate with whoever, whether it's the school district or, it might make the most sense for HOPE to be that figure.
We are often not the first people aware, though. Obviously, police are usually the first people aware, so they're usually in touch with. They were in touch with the school district before we were aware last time. And so maybe Captain Torres can speak to that. I see he's got his hand up.
Hi, so thanks for inviting me to the meeting. This is the first one I've been to, but hopefully it won't be the last. So I got your email this afternoon. I spoke to the chief about it. I spoke to Lieutenant Jameson about it also. So we do have some edits on that, and I sent it to you, Tegan, just right now because I just got back into the office. Okay. But if you like, I can read it to you because it is a little bit different. The meaning of it is the same, but it is a little bit different than what you have on screen. So I don't know how you want to, what's easier for you to do.
How about you read it to us?
All right, so this is what we came up with. If a local suicide occurs and generates or may generate public interest / concern, the Milpitas Police Department may issue a press release pursuant to Police Department policy and consistent with the best practices and recommendations for reporting on suicide, parentheses, reportingонsuicide.org. The press release shall include contact information for available community resources meant to prevent suicide. In the event a juvenile is involved, the police department will advise the school district of the intent to disseminate a press release prior to its release. With all suicide press releases, the police department will make an effort to advise the city's post-vention task force prior to its release. So we kind of shortened it a little bit because a lot of the information in the other one is captured in the subsections ahead, and just kind of, that's what we would like to use.
So do others have comments?
I think that sounds appropriate, and I like the language where it lists contact phone for resources or support. I think that's important. Yeah, so I think it sounds like it's a well coordinated effort indicated in that section.
I think both the PD version seems to really emphasize the coordination part, which is great. I think the Hope Task Force draft emphasizes more the safe messaging part. I don't know if a combination of the two would be good. I think one point in the Hope version that would be great to see included in the PD version is the specific statement that's being shown right now: out of respect for survivors, the release will not confirm the death. And then no press release will be issued for suicide deaths that occur in private and do not impact the public. I'm not sure, I might have not heard it, but I don't think those were specifically called out in the PD version. But I do like both.
Oops, sorry. So one of the reasons we didn't specify as to public or private is because in theory, either one could have an impact or generate concern or interest from the public. And so with this, the way that we wrote it is that it gives us that ability to issue a press release on either one.
I think, John, the concern with the last one was that the family was not expecting and not ready for our press release to be issued. And so I think that that's why this group last, when we met, discussed wishing that if it's not something that's, just the public having an interest in something is probably not enough to make it newsworthy.
Well, it's not necessarily the public having an interest in it, for lack of a better phrase, to be busybodies, right? Nothing like that. It's more of the interest that is generated when the public may see a large police presence at a location, which often happens in certain investigations.
The problem that was brought up last time, the main thing was that the school district was blindsided by this and they weren't ready for this. They were not contacted or nothing. And then all of a sudden they had a real problem on their hands with all the kids at the school.
So the school district was contacted regarding this investigation. I was a part of the investigation and they were contacted in that. Perhaps the timing of everything going on could have been played out a little bit better. But from the get-go, we did inform and we were in contact with the school district during the beginning of the investigation and throughout it.
So maybe it's an amendment to that last sentence on your version, John, with making an effort to advise the city's post-vention task force, which I think you mean Milpitas Hope, but also other agencies which have which this directly impacts, like, if it was a juvenile, the school district.
So that is in the sentence right before it.
I think the issue was not so much the school district being notified from what I to not share that it was a suicide. But then that detail was shared in the press release. So if maybe in the coordination efforts, there could be alignment in what the agencies are allowed to say with what the PD is allowed to say, maybe that could help that part of it. In addition to notifying them that there's going to be communication out.
So one of the things that we run into is, you know, we have an obligation in the area of transparency to make sure that we put out information, and in using the guidelines that I think this group had recommended, the best practices and recommendations for reporting on suicide. That's kind of where we tailored that press release from. Could there be better communication between, in this particular instance, between the police department and the school district? Sure, there's always room for improvement, and I'm completely open to that. So it's something that, thankfully, this doesn't happen a lot. So it is just a matter of working out the bugs for, hopefully, that we don't have any future incidents that we have to rely on this standard operating procedure or this protocol, but that it is, you know, that's what we're doing now. So we're just working on it to make sure that we can kind of get the coordination a little bit better. And it's our experience though too, as much as we put this on paper, when the day comes that you're making all these phone calls and talking to other organizations or including others and releasing what you can as far as the investigation is, how it's progressing, whether it's progressing slowly or rapidly, you know, there's always going to be some slight hiccups in that, and we just try to mitigate that as best as we can.
So another thought come up, John, is that does the what is the policy? Is one of the policy of the police is whether you would have to, or is it necessary to consult with a parent or survivors, especially if a person that has suicide as a youth, and whether you need their consent or not before the public, before there's a public, before there's a press release? Do they have to, or do they have to consult with them? Do they have to agree to it? Or is it just your protocol is that you would just issue a press release regardless?
We try to make sure that everybody involved has kind of a say in what's going to happen. But we also make sure that the press release that goes out, you know, if you notice the sample that we had, or the actual press release that we had from the last incident, is that there's no, other than an age and the school, which again, I'm open to that. Perhaps we could have not put the school and just said it was a student of the school district. But there's no identifying information in there. And I understand that, you know, the vast majority of the population is not going to know who that person is or their family. And yes, there is that small percentage. So we try to make sure that we take into account all those different factors before releasing the information. So, you know, we will speak with the family to make sure that they're aware that, you know, this is going out, and kind of take their feelings into account too, and to let them know, just like we talked to them about the HOPE program, and that whether or not they would like to be contacted by anyone from your group as well.
I also wonder if, so at the previous meeting, it was just also discussed that in this press release is one helpful part to be basically not including that it was a suicide, that the death is just being investigated, if that's, you know, because it's still transparent, but maybe doesn't bring some of that kind of, I guess, unexpected attention to the family if they're not ready for it. And then also, Mego mentioned in the chat that, you know, the language could also be run by the Milpitas Union School District for their input, since they just don't have a rep at this meeting, just to bring it to Tegan and Char's attention.
So, I'm sorry, with regard to, you're talking about how we could just say the death is being investigated and they just end that sentence there.
Yeah.
That's always something that we could do. One of the things that we are always concerned with, though, is particularly with in this instance where you have a bunch of young people being involved is that we want to control that rumor mill so that I can't get into the specifics of this investigation, but at this point, when we're putting out a press release and when we're working on this or in contact with the school district, we were also progressing forward with the investigation, which meant that we were going to have to start interviewing other people, which based on the age of this gentleman, there are going to be other students that we're going to have to talk to. We want to make sure that we put out information that is factual and that there's no way for that information to start just taking a life of its own and either A, affecting the investigation, or B, just the public seeing misinformation. Because unfortunately, once, as we all know, once someone tweets something on social media, very rarely does someone go back and redact that or correct it. And those tweets are getting retweeted, days and hours after the fact. And some people just take that as fact. So that's one of the reasons. And then I also remember looking at when we wrote this, the best practices and recommendations for reporting on suicide. And one of in the instead column, or the check mark of things that they recommend is to report the death as a suicide, but keep information about the location general. So, we kind of went with that by using those practices that were recommended to us.
John, did you have a chance to look at the sample press release that I had sent forward? I know this group hasn't seen it, but maybe Charu could share it.
This is the one, right, Tegan?
No, that wasn't the one that
The only press release that I got was ours that you sent me. So I got a PDF.
Oh, did I send the wrong one? Okay, never mind then.
I can share it from the drive.
Do you see the one that I did? That was like a draft.
Yeah, it's on the drive. I'll open it up.
Okay. So my question was that I think, isn't it really the coroner who determines the cause of death and makes it official that it was a suicide?
Well, the coroner will help that, but I mean, based on in this particular investigation, there was no other signs of foul play.
Right.
And so if there had been any question as to the manner of death, then yeah, we would not have listed it as that in our press release. We would have just, like Jay had mentioned, just put a death investigation is being conducted. And we've done that in the past.
I guess what I was wondering is why could you not just say that it was being investigated and it's implied? I mean, if somebody's reading between the lines, they can figure it out if you're saying there's no foul play suspected.
Because, that's also, again, just trying to mitigate that rumor mill that is going to be out there. And by the fact that, certain police records are public, well, certain things are public record. And by us being able to put out there the factual information that we know at the time of the investigation, it kind of eliminates, again, that speculation that could arise from either the press or from the public side, and just creating more drama, if you will, for those that are involved.
I don't think there's an issue with saying it was a suicide. Is it possible to say that, to publish that under the conditions that the family has been asked for their permission? And secondly, what was the other one? That any additional details about the individual who died are kept at a bare minimum. So under those two conditions, I think it would still follow, like you were saying, the reporting guidelines. But I think what the group is concerned with is really the privacy for the family, and then secondly, the safe messaging, which would come in with the details about the individual.
Yeah, I guess maybe I'm just not seeing it. I mean, there's not a whole lot of details that are listed in there other than the age. And again, like I said, we have not said a Milpitas High student? Yes. I mean, no, looking back at it now, hindsight being 2020, there's always room for improvement, like I said. And that's why one of the reasons we're all sitting here and trying to make sure that we can put out a product for everybody that is respectful and that also gets help for those that may be reading it that are in crisis because of this event.
Yeah, I think that would help if even just the detail of Milpitas High was taken out, or if it was included in combination with consulting with the school district, so they just were aware that this was going to be out there.
Yeah, and like I said, the timing again, you have to. It's sad that we know this, Lieutenant Jameson and I, being that it's something that we've experienced throughout our career. I mean, investigations sometimes happen quickly and things keep moving. And sometimes the timing of what we would like, what is the ideal or what is on paper, sometimes just doesn't happen because we have to keep moving and we have to make sure that we owe it to everybody involved, the family involved, to make sure that a thorough investigation is conducted. So I will admit that, yeah, the timing probably could have been a little bit better with our contact, but again, we were in contact with the school district from the get-go. But like I said, I'm open to suggestions and something that I'm more than happy to take back to the chief and see what he has to say and what we can do to work it out so that we can put something together that is both effective and,
thank you, John. Just similarly to the point that Miguel was just made, if there is a possibility of including a language in the policy where the department will be consulting with parents in the event that the person who died of suicide is a youth or a child, is that the department will consult with the parents or before there's a press release, something to that extent, so that the parents know about it. And I don't know if your policy can even go further by indicating if the parents are not ready, that the press release won't be released, but at least there's an effort to consult with the parents before they read about it on the newspaper,
well,
or in public.
No, and I could appreciate that. But again, our investigators were with the parents that day, and we do have these discussions with them. And like I said, we do have these discussions about when we want to refer them to the Hope Task Force as well. So it's kind of all encompassed in there. And then we just have to weigh it out. If someone is adamant, does that mean that our press release still or will or will not go out? I think it's a decision that we have to make in consultation at that time. And maybe it does become more vague, possibly, than if they gave it their approval, so to speak. So that, I mean, by keeping it the protocol a little bit on that vague, and it does also give us that latitude for both situations. It doesn't lock us into like that we have to put a press release out. It just gives us that ability and that flexibility, because every situation is going to be different, unfortunately. So we can't say that, while we're using this last incident as this last suicide as kind of a case study for this, the next one, unfortunately, that happens may involve a juvenile, but the circumstances could be completely different. And if we have something that allows us that flexibility on how to message that out and who we have to give an advisement to, time permitting, that's kind of what we would lean towards more, because our day-to-day activity is not fixed. It's different every day, and every investigation is different. So
Charu has the sample press release that I had hoped to send you, John. I'm sorry if I didn't send it, but it's a totally fictional incident. And I've taken out the word suicide in the lead. So, I mean, obviously, if you're saying no foul play is suspected and somebody's, fallen off the library garage, potentially it could be a suicide and people might read it that way, but it didn't say that. so that was kind of where I was going with this, was that, you know, you could give enough information on something that's impacting the public, obviously.
I'm trying to read through it real quick. Sorry.
Sure. The most of the rest of it is the same as yours. Just read the first two paragraphs. On Monday, December 13th, at 4:21, Milpitas Police Department responded to a 911 call reporting the body of a teenage male found outside the Milpitas Library garage. The library garage and Windsor Street exit are expected to remain closed for several hours during the police investigation. No foul play is suspected. And then it goes on with the same sort of thing that you had in yours.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's what we had talked about, you know, maybe taking that line out about suicide and the fact of the exact school. I'm not willing to really right now commit to that would be the standard or the mask for all of our press releases, because again, all the investigations are going to be different. And there may be a time and a place and a need to inform the public that it was a suicide. And I think as long as we operate within those guidelines, you know, I think that we're okay in that. It's just, again, we have to take all things into consideration when we do that.
Okay.
And we're more than happy, like, so we're more than welcome to, or willing to continue discussing it, or, you know, going through a couple different versions of it. I can talk to the chief about that, and we can kind of move forward from there. But that was what he and I spoke about this afternoon, and what he was comfortable with for what would be section E in the procedure.
I think if we quick, we have another review, maybe one, even two more reviews. The next one would be a combination of yours, added, you know, combined with what we just been presented here. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, could Tegan, I mean, could we basically, because Captain Torres, you sent that over to Tegan, right? Your version of the.
Yeah, I sent it in an email, because that's that she had emailed me about, I guess, upcoming for this meeting, that was going to be something that was discussed. So
Yeah. Okay, so maybe there's a way that we can kind of incorporate those, like everything that's been discussed here, into one for the group to review next time, and then also ensure that it gets passed along to a school district representative, just because there is not one on the call. So it might be the best next step to make sure that this language is something that's agreeable.
Meeting next time from the district specifically. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're on our roster, but I don't think they've been attending.
Well, we can share with them the importance of having their voice as part of the conversation.
Yeah, sure.
And we also keep in mind, though, too, that the school district will eventually issue their own press release on their timeline based on their own policies. So that's something to keep in mind too, is that, you know, once we issued ours, then they're going to go ahead and follow their standards and their protocols to issue a press release, and whatever that timeline may be. Typically the lead in most press releases for anything that we deal with, whether it's a suicide, a homicide, major case, or anything like that, comes from the police department. And those other groups that may be impacted, or that have a seat at the table, so to speak, or want to weigh in on it, then they follow their own guidelines for when they're going to do it. And that could be same day, that could be the next day. But the police department's timeline is going to be a little bit different. And we're respectful of that too, but we have to make sure that we get the information out in order to stem that misinformation that may be arising because of this. And particularly in this, again, in this type of investigation, and in reading, you know, the guidelines and things like that. I mean, the quicker that we can put out information so that people know what it is, and the quicker that we can provide help to those that are affected by this, the student population in this investigation in particular, I think is, time is of the essence in that sense. And that's ultimately what we're all trying to do, is make sure that those resources are getting out there to those in need so that they can take advantage of them. Because you can only imagine how this affects, kids of that age. And their parents as well. And if the parents don't have our thought is also, if the parents don't have a speaking point as to factually what occurred, they're going to have to play catch up with their kids who are now just going to Instagram, Snapchat, all these different mediums, TikTok, and discussing it, and it may not be factually correct. And now you have people that are impacted on the falsehood of what happened. And so we're just trying to make sure that we get that information out, be respectful to those that we need to be, but ultimately make sure the resources are available. That is our end goal as well.
So where do we want to go with this? John, do you want to take this back to the chief? And
yeah, I mean, if you guys want to provide me with like some bullet points or some samples, I'm more than happy to go talk to them and see where we can implement that in, and so that we can see if there's something that we can change from ours, or where we stand with that.
I think that what we had heard from this group before was that from family members who lost someone, to have a press release go out would be very upsetting if it had happened to them, or was very upsetting. So that, I think that's where this stemmed from. And what I'm hearing, I guess, is because the teenage population is one that's going to talk and the rumor mill is going to get going. Is there no way to avoid commenting on it if it's a teen that dies?
I would think that we'd want to get the most and the most factual information out there as quickly as we can, so we can just stop that spread of disinformation. Because like I said before, even with adults, I mean, there are times when we put a press release out, take for example, a homicide investigation that we're doing. And when there's a large police presence and people start seeing that and they start putting out information that's there, you'll notice like 2 to 3 days later that false information is still being retweeted around the internet. And no one is updating their initial social media posts, even though we put out a press release. So for us, we can kind of, to a certain extent, control that narrative that goes out there, and it's factual. It's not, there's really nowhere to go with it. We may update it down the road if something changes, and we always reserve that right to update any press release that we do, because it's the facts that are known to us at that time. Had this had turned into something else, yes, we would have updated it with a different press release. But at the time when we were, far into this investigation, we were comfortable and factually correct with classifying with what we did. So I don't know if that answers that question to you. And I was just trying to get that.
It sounds like it's inevitable that there would be a police presence in an instance like this. A lot of cars around and neighbors and people who see it would talk. So maybe our initial thought that if the public was not impacted, that you could avoid issuing a press release. Maybe it doesn't happen that the public is not impacted. Is that what I'm hearing?
There are instances, yes, where that would happen. And we've had plenty of investigations where we've done some serious investigations, and to be quite honest, no one knew about them until we put out a press release days down the road, let's say.
Okay.
But in this particular case, you had a large presence at family's home. And again, we're dealing with students, and that information coupled with, well, let me back up. We had a large police presence at the house. And then during the course of our investigation, we were starting to go to the schools to go talk to other students. We had to control that before it got out and spread past that. you change the dynamics or the situation for this investigation to something different. And yeah, there is that possibility that we probably would not have issued a press release for that because it just didn't generate that need at that time. And sometimes I'll be honest, it's kind of there's no playbook that says that if this, then that. Some of it is going to be a gut decision from the investigative team that's out there, from the command staff back at the office, and kind of a collaboration about that as to when we're going to do it or should we do it, and just being out at the scene and knowing what the public perception is of what we're doing out there. Because I don't want to bore you or take up any more of your guys' time, but there are many instances where we've done something that's to us routine, whether it be a car stop or a felony car stop for a stolen vehicle or something like that, and we don't issue a press release, but yet we look on social media and someone sees it as something different, and it just kind of blows up, so to speak, on there as to this was some major chase or something like that, and then again we have to play catch up on something like that just to quell that rumor mill. So there are many facets to what we do, and it's just ever changing. So.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Could I say something?
Yes. Marcia, yeah.
I would like to bring this back to another meeting and talk, because I feel like I understand the police department's policy, the way they're putting the policy, but I don't feel that it really incorporates what we talked about with the safe messaging. And I think that we really need to work on that to help protect the families also. And then one thing that in the police department's policy, when they say for the interest of the community, that really is offensive. And I think that we need to really concentrate on protecting the family of the survivors. And I feel that there's work that we need to do. And I think we're focusing too much on the past suicide. We need to be looking at what future episodes might be happening.
When you say future, do you mean like on the like being more proactive for putting things out?
No, I mean, we know that there'll be more suicide incidents, and I mean, we know that that's going to happen. And I just think that we need to be better prepared on how we put it out there.
Okay.
And I think the safe messaging is very important, and be respectful of the families for what they're going through. And I'm speaking as a family member who has dealt with this. And I understand that the police department feels that putting out press releases helps with the putting out the facts and the real information, but in reality, it doesn't really stop the misinformation that's out there.
Yeah, misinformation will be out there no matter what, but I think that it also does kind of stem that, because again, people can point back to the factual information that's being put out.
True.
Well, maybe there's some way for us to combine and at least in our policy and our practice, be mindful of what the family's going through, and try to make the decision with that as part of the piece. And I'm sure police do, consider that, but maybe if it's written in that is part of it, and it's clear that you guys are talking to the families as you're doing it, and kind of incorporating what you have to share, but also taking into account the personal ramifications to the family.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm open to discussion about it, and we do the best that we can given the circumstances, and given the circumstances of talking to the families at that time.
Mhm.
I've done plenty, and Lieutenant Jameson's done plenty, and the chief has done plenty of these investigations,
Mhm.
and they never get any easier. And we need to make sure that we balance all those things, in addition to, like we do, offering families the resources that are available, whether it be through this task force or through our own peer support people, or even we've offered our department chaplain to families in need as well. So it is kind of part of the package, if you will, or the protocol for us to speak with the family about not only the investigation, but about things that they may need, or things that we're going to do, and to keep them apprised of the investigation and the process of how it's going.
Mhm.
Our goal is to make sure that they're not left in the dark during this traumatic incident, and that they understand that the things that we're doing are just to make sure that we owe it to them that a thorough investigation is conducted.
Mhm.
I agree with Marcia as well, that I think this is something that we should at least bring to another meeting, if not maybe sooner. But one thing that I think is important here is that this can be an iterative process. So we can incorporate some of the safe messaging language that we all definitely have agreed is so important into, like weave that into the actual protocols and sort of marry the two in the most effective way for Hope itself, from John's version and from the Hope Task Force version. I don't think that, we need to kind of, it's not an adversarial relationship between those two forms or two drafts of language. So I think that's basically what a good next step would be. And we can move that along as quickly as we would like. If we'd like to do it over email and exchange and have a draft that goes, like a new draft that goes around for the group to review, or if we want to do it at the next meeting or convene a meeting sooner, something like that, to move this process along to get the best version of this for Hope to have in place as soon as possible.
I agree. I think, that would work out well. I also think that now that you mention it, should we have a different subsection let's just take the police subsection that we're talking about now, just leave it where it's at, but having a different subsection that for not just the police department, but for also the city PIO, or for the Hope Task Force, for when they're going to be issuing any communications regarding the incident that occurs, is do we put the safe messaging practices in its own little spot there, so that it's available to everybody and everybody's kind of understands what those are, so that they're all on the same page, regardless of where the press release comes from, or regardless of where the follow-up social media posts or anything like that come from. It's there for everybody to kind of have and review.
Mhm. Okay. Good. Well, thank you, everybody. That was a thoughtful
Tom had a-
discussion.
Oh, I think Tom has a question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It seems like and I got into this discussion a little bit late, sorry about that. But it seems like under these particular circumstances, because of the large police presence, okay, obviously a larger segment of the community becomes aware of the fact that something has occurred. And if a large segment of the community becomes aware of the fact that there is an event, the rumor mill will run rampant, okay? And so the question becomes, is it better to allow the rumor mill to rule the day, or is it better to allow factual information to rule the day? And I'm not really sure which winds up being more respectful, so to speak, of the wishes of the affected family. I think I would venture to guess that most families would prefer that nothing ever be said, if at all possible. So then the question becomes, under these circumstances, is it necessary for there to be a large police presence? I mean, under this, in this particular circumstance, why was there a large police presence if there was no danger to the community?
So in this particular suicide, you have a juvenile involved, right? So whenever there's a juvenile death, there is a Santa Clara County protocol through the district attorney's office in which we have to abide by it. So when you enact a protocol like that, there is always the possibility that you're going to get outside agencies, whether it be the DA's office, the coroner's office, that are also going to respond to things. So those are extra bodies, if you will, that will be coming to a scene. You have several patrol cars that go to a call for service, such as this, that were part of the initial 911 call. As they're there, you know, and again, I can't get into the specifics as the investigation. Let's just take this as a kind of an example.
I don't think it's necessary to get into this.
But there is a large police presence of uniformed personnel that would respond. You have a fire presence there potentially as well. You'll have a detective presence there. And then once we start branching out to continue with the investigation, that the detective presence and the uniform personnel presence starts spreading out to scenes other than the house. In addition to that, we add more uniform personnel that may have to come and document the scene. So there are a lot of moving parts, and there are a lot of bodies that would be showing up at a scene. Again, like I said before, for this particular given example, you change the circumstances for anything else, and tweak it here or there, or give a different age or different circumstance, and you may not have that large of a police presence. It's just this one particular incident garnered more people than normal, which is standard because of the age, and because of the follow-up investigation that had to be conducted in a timely manner, and that's what we ended up with.
Well, I would venture to say, given what you've described, which seems the norm, so to speak, there's no way to avoid the rumor mill running rampant, because the more visibility a particular event has, the more people become aware of it, and people just can't stand the absence of chiming in, so to speak, or reaching a conclusion as to what's going on. And like you said, that the social, with what we have available to us now to put out rumors or send out rumors, it's going to go rampant, and that certainly is going to affect, I gotta believe, the family of the family of the affected family or families. And so I would give credence to the position that better to have the facts out as soon as possible, as opposed to allowing the rumor mill to rule the day. And the question becomes, what is the term showing or taking into consideration the family and the effect on the family? How do you best deal with that set of circumstances? And I don't think the answer to that question is easily arrived at, or I'll bet you there are as many opinions on how to come to some, appropriate course of action as there are people attending this meeting.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I mean, the decision is not easy. And like I said, sadly, in close to a 30-year career, it's a decision I've had to make several times, and until the end of my career, I probably will have to make that decision again, especially as holding the rank that I do and overseeing investigations of this manner. And we try to take it all into consideration, and there are some times when we get it right, and in all honesty, there are sometimes that we get it wrong because someone may not appreciate it, or not find it welcome, basically, based on the decision we make. And it's just one of those things that we have to learn from it and continue to keep doing what we do, but, take these things into consideration so that the next time, which we hope that there isn't a next time, that we kind of reflect back on this last situation and maybe these ideas that you're bringing up now and these different things that we're talking about here, those kind of go into that decision-making process and allow us to kind of reflect back on that quickly and say, okay, this is what happened in our last incident. It may not be the same, it may be the same, but let's try and make this one, in quotes, better, if we will, and do it in that manner. And it's kind of no different than the way the task force is right now, is that, all these things were put in place without, if I'm not mistaken, this is probably one of the first juvenile suicides that we've had in a while. And so it is one of those things that thankfully, we have a low rate for that, and that it doesn't occur like some other, communities have it occur where, their practices may be a little bit different and they may be a little bit more fluid or smoother, if you will, because they have that experience there. And as we continue to grow with the task force and moving on, I think things will get to that point where we can try and make everyone happy. But again, and be respectful is the number one goal, is be respectful of those that are involved, but then also to get that help out to those that are affected. And I think we can all kind of agree on that, is that, we have to reach those people that are affected by these tragic incidents. And that's why I like this task force. I mean, I would almost like to, if I could make one suggestion, is I think you guys have a lot of reach, and that maybe it's taking a more proactive approach with the messaging that goes out, as opposed to like a reactive approach after an incident, to try and get your message out there, to have that reach that you have, and touch those people that are kind of on that verge and that maybe don't know that the resources are available.
Good point.
Well, I just want to share that I appreciate this opportunity where with Milpitas specifically, that you have this task force. Not only that, but you also have participation from the department, which is very important. I don't think too many cities in this county that has this kind of task force set up to support their city. And I think this is a great model for all the cities to follow as well. And I appreciate it. The fact that Captain Torres and I'm sorry, Mr. Jamison, Lieutenant Jamison, participate in this conversation that allow us to provide input into your own policy. Because I'm in San Jose, and I don't think the city of San Jose provide this opportunity to the residents or to other community groups. So this is great.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate being able to have a voice in everything. And I think, it's also our responsibility to make sure that we pass along kind of the investigative process of suicide investigations or any death investigation, so that when all of you are discussing these things, that you have that kind of in the back of your head, is that this is the way the police department works and handles these things. And, these are their limitations here, or, the areas that they can move forward in, or information that they can provide to us. So I think it is a good collaboration between everybody. And like I said, this is the first meeting I've been to. So I look forward to more, and I appreciate it. I appreciate you letting me talk on and on for a while, but I'll try and have less to say next time.
We're happy to have you here. All right, well, it sounds like we have some things to think about, and some stuff that you can take back to the chief, and maybe we can come back to this meeting with some more ideas on how we would word it in the policy. So I think, Terry, are we ready to
Yeah,
move
thank you. I think we are ready to end the meeting, but I think for Jan 11th, if we can bring this to table again. And then any quick updates before we end the meeting? We are at 5 and there's a special council meeting today. Okay, we'll do our updates next time. But thank you, Marsha, Pastor Mice, and Liliana for showing up at our Magic on Main and outreaching for us. Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. Happy holidays. We'll see you on Jan 11th.
Happy holiday.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Happy
Everyone.
holidays.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.